Per il gruppo.
For the ENF, de Graaf.
President, there will be no future of Europe as we know it, because there is no past or future in Islam. Every reminder of a non-Islamic past will be destroyed. Every possibility of a non-Islamic future will be killed. The future of Europe will be the Caliphate. But first, Europe will be torn apart by religious and ideological wars. And that is the warning we get from almost every ex-Muslim who dares to speak out. Who dares to speak out. Because ex-Muslims are murdered everywhere. That is the future of Europe, unless the European countries start a program of de-Islamizing now. The EU is not useless. The EU is not just an obstacle to fight this terrible threat. No, the EU itself is the threat to the future of Europe. It embraced the globalist agenda of self-destruction of European culture and the agenda of replacement of the European people by people from Islamic countries. It opened its borders and spent billions to invite millions of uneducated people from a backward culture that will launch Europe straight back into the Middle Ages. Islam means gender inequality, polygamy, child marriage, slavery, honor killings. It means death for unbelievers. It means absolute power to a political and religious elite. The future of Europe must be a future of revolt against the EU, against the globalist agenda, against Islamization. It must be a future for our cultural heritage, for our national identity, for our national sovereignty, or there will be no future at all. Therefore, I welcome the victory of the Eurosceptic parties in Italy. I welcome the stubborn resistance of Viktor Orban, who fights the disruptive agenda of Soros. I welcome the courage of the Visegrad Group to fight the madness of Merkel's open border policy. Patriots fight together for the future of Europe, for the future of our children, and we will prevail.
La parola.
Let's press ahead whether you agree or not with what was said.
Onorevole Bütikofer, prego.
Bütikofer, please, let other people speak.
Prego, you have the floor, Mr. Bütikofer.
President, thank you for giving me the floor. In 2 sentences, what the colleague just did amounted to hate speech, and I want you to look into that. Thank you.
For the ECR, Mr. Trebesius.
Ja, vielen Dank, Herr
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. Prime Minister Costa, I've learned today that we agree that the EU and the Euro system are not working very well at the moment, but I fear that's all we have in common. While the big coalition of pro-Europeans here are calling for centralization, joint coffers, and at the end of the day an EU superstate, I think that's the wrong way forward. Centralization damages autonomy and creativity. Europe needs autonomy and creativity not only in the market for goods, where we see that the players are weighed down by more and more legislation and increased state industrial planning from Brussels. Europe needs competition in the political sphere. That is why Brexit is not just a threat, it is an opportunity, because the Brits are going to have to be creative in order to solve their problems. This creativity can be a positive example for all of us and thus be to everybody's benefit. It's important that Switzerland, which is at the heart of Europe and is not a member of the EU, can show our citizens on a daily basis that it's perfectly possible to live well and to have good economic results without the EU and without the euro. For us in Germany, Switzerland has become very important because we have a German-speaking media which don't toe the line of political correctness and therefore can show a different version of reality. Alternative factors, perhaps a verbal innovation from the USA, but it's something that we've been seeing for years, particularly if we're talking about the euro of migration. It's useful if we can have a number of different voices in Europe which can compete against the power of the state-sponsored media. As you've heard, we're not sufficiently innovative when it comes to trade in goods, where we have political solutions being papered over by Gadgetarian from Brussels, and there are far too many journalists who toe the line of the mainstream. The so-called pro-Europeans are damaging our continent more than they may think, but they're more and more under pressure in a number of countries, and we're very happy that under the leadership of the Netherlands, Denmark, Finland, Ireland, Sweden and the 3 Baltic states, there is now resistance against this centralization. That really encourages me. Prime Minister Costa, I have always been, I will always be an optimist, and I am optimistic at the end of the day. Sensibleness will win the day.
For the Liberals, vERHOFSTADT.
Prime Minister, this is a parliament, you see. Okay. So last week, Prime Minister, it was in China, President Xi Jinping crowned himself Emperor for life of that enormous continent. Also last week, it was Donald Trump who started an old-fashioned but I think dangerous trade war. And also last week, Vladimir Putin gets away with murders on former Russian spies on European soil. I should say, welcome back to the future. Welcome to the new world order. A world order based on empires and not longer on nation states, on the 196 nation states we count. And it's clear that in such a world order, we have to look to one thing if we want to talk about the reform of Europe. What is our interest? How we can defend our interest in this new world order? And how we can defend also our security, because in the future we will only count on ourselves in this new world order. And in such a new world order, the key question is, are we ready now with the European Union? And my answer to this is no, we are not ready for the moment. And I give always the example of how the Americans reacted to the financial crisis, Prime Minister, and we reacted to the financial crisis in 2008. They, in 9 months, Democrats and Republicans, decided a 3-stage rocket, cleaning up the banks, 400 billion TARP, an investment program 3 times bigger ours, 900 billion. They are the capitalists and we so-called are the Keynesians, but the opposite is true. And at the same time, a quantitative easing program of 1.2 trillion. And we, after 9 years, are still discussing the banking union inside the European Union. And we have still not cleaned up all our banks in Europe. And that's not the only example. The example is also valuable for other fields. So the real problem we have is that we are still not a real union, as our founding fathers wanted. We are still a confederation of nation states that is based on the unanimity rule. So what we need as reform, and you have indicated in your intervention a lot of them, I think 3 things we need. First of all, a defence community, a European defence community. We are alone in the world of tomorrow, so we need to do that homework. We are spending 40% of the American military expenditures, and we are only capable to do 10% of their operations of the American army. So there is a field where we need absolutely to create that community the fastest as possible. My second point, and you have indicated it, I agree completely with you, the new euro governance, a euro budget, a fiscal capacity. It's completely ridiculous to have a single currency and not behind that single currency a fiscal capacity and a full authority. It's not only with the Stability and Growth Pact that we can do the business. And then finally, and that's my third point, And there I'm in disagreement a little bit with you and with the tone of your intervention. We need also institutional reform, a renewed European democracy. We need, for example, a European Parliament that is not only responsible for the expenditures but also for the income, as in any normal European democracy. And we need also, in my opinion, I said already to President Juncker, not a Commission of 28. Let's bring it back to a real European government of 12 or 15 people. And we need to get rid of the unanimity rule. Let's be honest, also in matters of foreign policy. I give the example now of what is happening in Britain, this attack on British soil. We have still no opinion of the European Union. Mrs. Mogherini is completely silent about it. Why? Because she needs, for example, 28 agreements before she can take a position in such a crucial issue. Well, I think it's time that we do this reform now. Why, Mr. Prime Minister? We have a window of opportunity, I think, of 2 years to do so. After Brexit, there was no Nexit, no Frexit, no Dexit, fortunately. But it's not one. There could be a Frexit, a Dexit and an exit if in the coming 2 years we don't succeed. And that's your responsibility, and that's our responsibility, and that's in fact our common responsibility. So let's do it now, in the coming 2 years. Thank you.